Hello, everybody. I had a very bad week, and because of it, I am on entirely new hardware. And I was not gonna do anything until Thursday. I was just gonna sit here and write a new book, but unfortunately, that is a very boring thing to do. Therefore, I ended up watching YouTube videos instead, as you do, and I ended up on Izzy's channel. I'm very sorry for stealing the title of the video, which is Ranking Sims Expansions from Good to Horrifically Bad. I really enjoyed her video. The issue is that she didn't rank even half of the existing expansions, so I thought I can do better, but in worse production quality with a lot less effort invested. So actually, I could do worse, but I could definitely rank them all. So, what we're doing today is ranking all the Sims expansions and base games. We have already thrown kits, stuff packs, and game packs right into the trash pile. Let's just let's just consider them the F tier because technically this ranking site that I'm using does not have an F tier. So for S tier, I have decided to go with Sul, which is like hello and hello to a good gaming experience. For A tier, we have aliens because aliens are fucking cool and you can't tell me otherwise. For middling tier, we have Belagoth. You kind of overused, but kind of hanging in there. It's not bad. It's just everywhere and a lot of it. For C tier, which is now in our bad category, we have Mrs. Crumplebottom because, of course. And for D category, I could not think out of a good D thing for The Sims. So, dummy. That is what those things are called, and that is the Sims 2 photograph of a school bus with dummy Sims that are not even NPCs or playable Sims, just kind of in the background. They're populating the school bus. You can actually see them in the Sims 4 City Living as well if you just zoom into some parts that you might be better off not zooming into. So, anyways, we have over 40 items in this list. I will be trying to remember them by head. This whole thing is not scripted. That would take way too long. And as I said, this is the worst production quality. And I should probably spend less than a minute on an item. Therefore, let's begin. The Sims, the base game. This is the first time that we see being able to play Dollhouse on your computer. It is a very cool and novel idea. Therefore, directly S tier it goes. Ranked. Thank you very much. Something to mention as well. When franchise repeats idea, it's definitely gonna lose points. And when the franchise repeats idea but badly, it's gonna lose twice as much points. So let's proceed. The first expansion for The Sims was Living Large. I don't think that I can call it an expansion because it was just so random. It included quite memorable things like the Grim Reaper and the Genie and a whole bunch of like new furnishings and stuff, but it was so thrown together that an expansion theme it does not make. Sure, it was trying to expand the game, but it was trying to expand the game in such a weird direction that direction does not make. Therefore, to crumple bottom, off you go. I know that is very mean. This is the first time that you tried Sims, but not the best. The Sims House Party was better defined because it had a lot of objects to, well, throw house parties. Unfortunately, compared to everything that came afterwards, house parties are not that exciting. Therefore, you have done better than bad, but off to middling tier. Please don't crash. I don't know how stable this is gonna be. Off to middling tier you go. The Sims Hot Date introduced the ability to leave your house to community lots for the first time. that is a big thing. It obviously focused on dating and it focused on things like restaurants and stuff, but being able to leave your lot for the first time, that is innovative. That is doing something, and that's doing something good. Therefore, hello game, I would definitely like to play you. The Sims Vacation is the first time when we can send the Sims on a vacation. Of course, there was one world. If I remember correctly, it had, once again, I'm doing this from memory, and I have a lot of history with the whole franchise, so yada yada, I'm gonna blob on in here. You had one world, but it had like cold zones and like really hot zones that you could like stay at like a skiing resort or a beach party. There wasn't really a way to reserve a room, so you kind of competed with other Sims for beds. It was kind of like almost like living on a big community lot, if anything. And we only have like one world, so it's not like separate worlds, it's just like separate zones positioned on this seasonal world. And we didn't have seasons back then. We didn't have changing seasons. So having being able to see something like snow and do like little tricks with your snow board, thank you, brain, was very novel. Off to S tier it goes for Sul Sul. The next thing that comes is The Sims Unleashed. This is the first time that we can see the Sims getting pets. It was cats and dogs, and if I remember, there were like little wild things like raccoons that sometimes ended up on your lot and sounded as scary as burglars did. I don't remember if they were raccoons. Maybe they were skunks. Once again, doing this from memory. But wonderful idea, great execution. Pets were kind of as annoying to take care of as the Sims themselves. Added, things to the gameplay. Everyone likes doggos and catos, and everyone likes having that in their household. Great. Definitely to S tier you go. The Sims Superstar. I don't actually remember playing a lot of this one. I don't know, maybe it's the theme that just doesn't super interest me. It allows you to like go to new places to be a superstar and introduces things like paparazzis and a whole bunch of new equipments, such as like this little skydiving kit. We can actually go to the list of not Easter eggs. Do I have, yeah, there we go, to content packs. We can, there's great descriptions of these things on the internet. So if you don't remember, you can go and check. Yeah, it had skydiving simulator. I'm just gonna. Did anyone take a picture of that? That's a very, very tiny picture. Did someone take a video of it? Yeah, somebody did. Oh god, that is awful sound. But early Windows movies recordings, hey? Oh, that was with Fraps. Oh, I remember Fraps. Yeah, it did things like that. So I mostly remember the expansion pack for really bizarre items that I didn't use all that much. But it was the first time that we saw getting famous, and it was a novel idea. So I'm gonna give it Aliens. It's kind of cool. Aliens are fucking awesome. Next expansion and last expansion for The Sims was Making Magic. You had this rabbit hole that you would jump into to go into a different world. You could learn to be a magician. It was really difficult, or at least my kid brain, I think, got stuck on it. You could hire skeletons to be your housekeepers and store them in coffins. Definitely peak cool. So we're just gonna add it into the Soul tier. And off to The Sims 2 we go. The Sims 2 is a huge leap over The Sims 1. For one thing, the graphics are much better. It's like proper 3D. Secondly, The Sims age now, and you can like tile your camera down. So you now have life states that aren't just baby, child, and adult. You now have baby, toddler, child, teenager, adult, and elder. The game was balanced pretty fairly, I would say. It was easier than The Sims 1, but it wasn't by any regard easy. You didn't have all that much time. You had a lot of things that you wanted to do. It made you kind of focus each generation on something different. The whole, concept of aging was novel. Of course, everyone else didn't age with you, so you had to like play your, well, neighborhood in a rotational style if you wanted everybody to age. I think by the end it was either apartment life or free time, one of those like expansions. They introduced the ability for you to age up your neighbors and friends when you like do a whole birthday celebration. So they would sort of age with you, but of course they wouldn't die on their own. So it was kind of weird to just kind of like make child friends and then become a teenager and they're not. So you have to either rotational play throughout the neighborhood or you have to leave them behind. Either way, huge leap, strong start, immediately into S tier. We're just gonna go straight into Sul. First expansion pack is University. It introduces the young adult life stage, allows you to go into a college campus where your Sims, when they're teenagers, at any point you can decide to send them to the university. They will then age up into young adults and they will live on a little college campus with a whole bunch of other people. It was quite novel because you couldn't actually have like non-controllable Sims just living in your lot before. So now you had like 8 to 10 Sims just walking around the lot, even though you weren't like controlling them. And using the living room and the kitchen so you could like build friendships and relationships and romantic interactions without having to like specifically invite them over, and that was pretty cool. And the whole study aspect was also pushing you because the semesters they would progress. I think each semester was something like 3 days, and you played through the whole young adult stage in one go. So you had to make sure that you attended your lessons, but also that you built your skill points so that you can build up your GPA to actually like graduate with your degree and not just waste time and flunk out. So very strong start, very unique. I'm gonna immediately put it as Soul. Loving it. Next come The Sims 2 Nightlife. Now, in my opinion, it's not the strongest expansion when it comes to The Sims 2. It introduced cars, but the lots are enclosed, so you get to see your car sit in the garage and drive off through a load screen, and then it loads into a new location, kind of like taking a taxi. It introduced attraction systems, so Sims would like specific features like fat, thin, haircut, the hair color. Well, you couldn't select specific haircuts, but like you could select beard, no beard, that sort of thing. And I also introduced forgot to mention University introduced zombies. It was like I think the only time the Sims franchise did like proper playable zombies. But once again, I'm going from memory in here. The Sims 2 Nightlife added vampires. They were kind of cool. They were like bluish tinted. These Sims didn't age, and they did have like a need to feed and everything. But it was so easy to lose a vampire because if they need to go to work, they will actually get up in the middle of the day to go to work, and practically by the time that they're by the car, they're gonna completely poof into flames and die. The Nightlife's focus was downtown, and all I remember about it is that it looked really friggin' drab. I wonder, can I like... Let's just switch off this window, we already know what dummies are. I kinda want to show you if there is a screenshot of the neighborhood here. They might have not done it, but the whole neighborhood screen, it's kind of gray because I think it's supposed to be like cement. And there isn't really like big buildings in there, so technically a downtown doesn't really feel Like downtown, sure, having like restaurants and shit to go to is kind of cool, but not super my thing. I think I could do without, except for the Vampire Life stage. I like having it, but I could probably do without. So I'm gonna say aliens. It's still cool, but it's not hello there. I definitely want to play you level of cool. I don't know why that sounds kind of sexual. Next, we have The Sims 2 Open for Business, which allows you to, well, first of all, it gives you like three different crafting tables, allowing you to make a whole bunch of flowers, a whole bunch of kids' toys, and a whole bunch of different robotics, including like a robot, I think, and a cleaning robot. Anyway, this is going from memory, so this is as good as you're gonna get. I did tell you that this is gonna be pretty shitty production value. Um, it allows you to open a business as an outside lot or as your own lot. So you can like actually like do a little area that everyone can enter on your lot and then open it as a business and people will come to see you. You can play around with that system so much. You can sell rocks if you want to, and it is kind of funny to do so, but some people would like charge for entry and then put Sims in a maze, or like charge for entry and then do like table games pretending that it is a casino. It is such a flexible system. It is definitely a good thing for The Sims 2, and I absolutely love it. I think that as an expansion, it's close to one of the must haves. Oh, yeah, cakes. I think there were a lot more cooking options in it now as well. I don't remember correctly. But yeah, as far as The Sims 2 expansion goes, one of like must haves, in my opinion. Like, it is a great, flexible thing, and that is definitely what you want in your simulation games. The Sims 2 Pets came along afterwards. Now, this one loses points because we're seeing it the second time. It kind of feels like an essential part of Sims by this point, but it's kind of sucks when essential parts of Sims just kind of get, taken and then resold to you once again. I don't like that. So while pets, very cute, customizable, great, no complaints. I do have that complaint that we are rehashing expansions now. So we're gonna go into the aliens tier. It's not a downgrade. Super cool. If you have The Sims 2 and like don't have The Sims 1, definitely, pets, part of the experience. You should have them. But at the same time, we just took an idea, copy pasted it, and sold it again with better graphics and of course everything else being better considering that we upgraded the engine and everything. Did they actually? I think they did. Next up comes The Sims 2 Seasons. First time when we see changing seasons in like the actual neighborhood. So now you have summers that can get too hot, your Sims can get a heat stroke. We have spring, we have fall, and the leaves actually like fall during fall. We have like gardening, and we have a lot of snow during winter, and it's like proper snow. So, like, a lot gets snowed in. It is so cool to see all of the previous locations get covered in seasons. Like, you have like making juice, you have new ways of like preparing food because you have like fresh ingredients, and that's very cool. It just became such like a cozy thing. I think you can throw Christmas and New Year's parties, but don't quote me on that because I know that The Sims 2 had like a Christmas stuff pack, and we have already thrown all of the stuff packs into the F tier. So I don't know, can you actually host a Christmas party with just seasons or nah? Not entirely sure. Either way, for what seasons brought, very novel to the franchise, very new, very cool. Goes into Sul Sul, hello, let's go, let's play. Next up is The Sims 2 Bon Voyage, which is The Sims 2 Vacation expansion. the same as the Sims 1 vacation expansion, except that now you can stay in different lots. You can stay like in camping lots, you can stay like in lots with like more in-depth accommodation, and you actually like pay for your room, so that room is reserved to you and other Sims can't just walk in, and you don't need to compete for beds, which is really cool. And it isn't one world anymore. It's like divided into separate different worlds, and depending where you go, you have like their own community lots. I don't think that there was a snow world. If I remember correctly, there was a lumberjack world, there was a China world, and there was like a tiki world. They have some like secret NPCs like Bigfoot, which is very cool to find. They have a lot new food for your Sims to try and everything. I am very, very satisfied with it. I would say it wants up vacation, but we are rehashing ideas again. So this one is hard. It If I could, I would put it in like between here, but for now let's go with aliens, because once again, it's an idea that was already used and we're doing it again. A Sims 2 free time adds whole things for your Sims to talk about and a lot of new things for your Sims to do, like ballet, building cars, kicking balls, making pottery. But honestly, it feels like an expansion light. I suppose it's because the whole theme is hard to define. Like, sure, you now have violins and you have like a place to practice ballet, but at the same time, that doesn't really go anywhere. It's not like you can, use that ballet skill and go to a community lot and perform with real ballerinas or anything like that. So for me, it's very middling tier. Like, it expands on the regular game, yeah, but it's kind of like house party, it's just adding. It's not a specific theme. It's well, it kind of is, but it's kind of just adding on what was already there. So the Belagoth, the Sims 2 apartment life. Take dormitories of the Sims University and tell people that you can like regularly live in them now. Like, the coolest thing about this is that you could totally build your own apartments and you could make them like pretty big. Sure, normally maxes out at 4 stories, but I'm pretty sure that with cheats you can like unlock that limiter so you can go higher. You can have a lot of families in that house. Kind of required cheating around, but the amount of building variety that you get for building apartments was never matched again. You can't really do that in The Sims 3, and you can't really do that in The Sims 4, and that is very, very disappointing. So, when it comes to living in apartments, The Sims 2 is where it peaked, and it is where they introduced the idea. So, hello, let's play. Perfect. Absolutely amazing. Love having other Sims around in my lot, especially when it's not open world. So I can't really move around freely and socialize. So having other people just like live around you and be able to interact in the communal space, just like, mwah, which is funny because we're gonna get to The Sims 4 and I do have problems with that. So I suppose whether it's chef's kiss or not really depends on the game and like how well that game functions. The Sims 3 comes along. Um, Unfortunate things. They're pudding faces. They lose quite a few things moving from The Sims 2, namely some like animations for like opening doors and variety things like different sim initiating the hug and things like that. It loses quite a lot of that complexity that was in 2, which is quite unfortunate. In exchange, you get an open world, very cool. Everybody ages at the same time as you, very cool. Great customization tools. So like ability to set any kind of material and any kind of color on anything, like the full proper color wheel, but at the same time you start encountering like serious issues with running it, especially as you pile on all of the expansions. You can play The Sims 1 with all of the expansions, will run perfectly. You can play The Sims 2 with all of the expansions, will run perfectly. You install everything that there is onto The Sims 3 and good luck. You have to do quite a lot of modding these days to get it to work. You have to have like a trash collector that like empties everybody's memories and switches off lights and like switches off stereos and deletes cars that have gotten stuck and resets sims that have gotten stuck at least like every 24 hours. You have to do so much fiddling to get that game to run. So kind of cool, kind of innovative, deserves love. It's Aliens. Like we're gonna take it down a notch from it being peak just because of all of the internal problems of The Sims 3. Oof, sorry, and we're not even Sims 4 yet. So the first expansion for The Sims 3 is The Sims 3 World Adventures. It is a bit of a mixed bag. Mm, it is a novel concept, and the fact that now you go to like different places like Egypt and I think it was still China and Paris of all places, and you get to explore tombs, like even underneath Paris. So it has that adventures gameplay, which is quite cool, but at the same time, with the other two titles, people expected a vacation, and it's harder to throw a vacay in an adventure, so it kind of added something and took something away. Alas, it is a great concept. Execution is boogie. Unique. We're no longer repeating the script for Vacation Bon Voyage. It's not one to one. It is something unique to The Sims 3. We're gonna go with Aliens, but I am a bit torn because of how many times The Sims World Adventures have just broken on me. We just couldn't progress the storyline anymore because for some reason the adventures board will no longer give you the next quest and being stuck without actually being able to do it. But a Sims 3 was a really buggy mess. Sims 4 became worse somehow, but The Sims 3 was a very buggy mess. So a lot of their problems come from that. Now, next expansion, Sims 3 Ambitions, allows you to, for the first time, this is something that I had to remind myself of her name. I'm so sorry. Aziz. I do watch her quite a lot as well sometimes. Aziz gets wrong. She says that get to work is the first time when you can actively play careers. No, it's not. That was Ambitions all the way in The Sims 3. You can be like a firefighter and a ghostbuster and a stylist. And it was pretty cool actually. It was unique. Unique for the franchise. It was an entirely new idea. Unique for The Sims 3, utilizes The Sims 3 pretty well because it's open world and there's no load screen, so you can like take care of your child at home and at the same time keep on switching to the firefighting sim that's running around switching off fires in the place. It's cool. It is definitely cool. 10 out of 10. New ideas are great. We're actually gonna see the same game rehash an idea, so we're gonna get to that. Next up is The Sims 3 Late Night. It's a bit of a mix of apartment life with superstar with nightlife. If I could put it into one, you have paparazzi and you have like the fame meter, and if you're more famous you can get to VIP places. You have vampires that are coming back. You have a bit of an apartment life, as in there's 2 apartments per preset tower buildings. So these buildings are like very high up and you can like get an apartment on top of it, but you can't like access the rest of the building, which is a bit of a disappointment. We're rehashing an idea for third time in a row now. It's a bit stale. It's a bit of a confused mess, and the part is executed pretty poorly. It could really do with separating ideas and executing them, you know, separately. So it's Belagoth for me. I'm sorry, no offense, but it's Belagoth for me. The Sims 3 Generations adds a whole bunch of things for your Sims to do while like in regular gameplay mode, and it's honestly executed not too bad. So like you have more elaborate weddings, you have imaginary friends, which I actually really loved because it kind of sucks if you don't want your kid to have an imaginary friend. It's great if you want to be able to rear a spouse alongside them. That's what I used it for. And it allows the kids to like pretend to play with costumes. It gives elders different walking styles. There's not really that much content for elders. A lot of the content seems to be kind of lopsided towards children, if you ask me, but it encounters the problem of House Party of kind of it's just expanding regular gameplay, and that might not be too bad, but it it kind of feels like the kind of thing that you would be like, "Oh, I forgot to put this into the main game. Let me just do a patch." It kind of feels like you're selling what could have been a patch, you know. So, great idea, but it's Bella Goth for me. Just I don't know. You need to do something more. Something a bit more than just expands gameplay a little bit. Like direction, specific theme, focus, and things like house party, free time, generation. It just doesn't do it for me. But it's still not hitting crumble bottom. So let's continue. In Sims 3 Pets, despite the fact that this is an idea getting rehashed for the third time, the same with Late Night, is getting aliens from me because A, pets are now controllable, and B, we have horses. So, like, actual upgrade, guys. You're not just rehashing pets, pets have something new and innovative and enjoyable. Like, you want to get the new version of pets. They're interesting. So it gets minus points for rehashing an idea for the third time. Honestly, if you need to rehash an idea for the third time, it's time to start including it into base game. You really shouldn't be selling the same thing over and over and over again. It just kind of it doesn't work for me. So it loses points there. It gains massive points for horses and for like controllable cats and dogs. That was cool. Playing as like a cat or a dog and actually being able to walk them around. Novel. New. Having a horse. Novel. New. See what I mean? Exciting. Showtime adds extra careers that are active careers, kind of like ambitions, except that this is like focused on singing and magicians and things. It really pushes like the social element where you were supposed to kind of play it a bit like a Facebook game where you can like send your Sims to a different player's like world and they will be performing there and then they will come back and like they will bring goodies and whenever somebody like sent their Sims to your world like they would randomly pop up. So like you would have these like surprise like events of like singer Sims or whatever. um you see now you're rehashing an idea sorta twice in the same game generation, which really doesn't work for me. And on top of that, you're pushing a social element, which honeys, by this point, that's 2024. I'm pretty sure that none of those social features are even like active. Whenever you add like such an online element to your game, it makes it almost an MMO where like the server shut down and your ability to like interact with content goes with it. So crumple bottom, it's not quite a dummy. There is quite nice things that you can do with it. It's the ambitions again, you know. You can play a magician, you can be a street magician, you can perform in your own world. It's pretty fun, but there's now features that no longer work. And we rehashed the same idea twice, which is just sad. The Sims 3 Supernatural was a weird one. You see, at this point in the franchise, we are still getting effectively like a new life state every single time an expansion pack comes out. And then The Sims 3 goes, let us repackage some life states that we have already released, but like add extra ones. And I loved the world. It was cool to also like it almost becomes the Sims 3 the dress up game, where like the life states themselves don't like super matter because they're a lot less in depth. But you can now have a Sims that is a fairy, and a Sims that is a genie, and a Sims that is a vampire, and a Sims that is a werewolf. I appreciated a united like town that was kind of moony, gloomy. I appreciated the amount of supernaturals. I think everyone was super into fairies because wings. Duh. Who doesn't like wings? But at the same time, you did a weird. Like, if you knew that you wanted to release this, you should have just put all the life states here instead of like repackaging and changing some of the old ones, because now you kind of sold me vampires twice, and I'm pretty sure you also sold me werewolves twice, though I'm not entirely sure. Maybe the Sims 3 Pet's special life state was the unicorn. I don't remember, but you also kind of Sims 3 vampires can sparkle. Like they wanted to incorporate a bit of Twilight, and I remember I really didn't like that as a girly that was super into vampires. So, on one hand, cool. On the other hand, you're repackaging content to sell it back to me, so kind of not cool. It's giving Belagoth. It's middling. It's okay. I wouldn't skip it. I love fairies. Badly planned. Let's go with badly planned. The Sims 3 seasons is the Sims 2 seasons, but now you have like a festival lot and you can visit there for like apple bobbing competitions and I don't know, spring Easter egg hunt and stuff. Honestly, it's just seasons the second time around. It did not improve onto things enough for me to give it more than Belagoth. So it's Belagoth. It's giving middling vibes for me. Um, Something to pay attention to as well is that it's incredibly pretty. Having an open world neighborhood where snow like falls on everything evenly and like where leaves fall and everything. Very cool. Very amazing. But you're repackaging the idea the second time now, and it kind of feels like it should have just gone into the base game, and you're not really making it cooler. Like with pets you made it much cooler. With seasons you kind of released seasons again. Like you were like, oh well, that we know that sells pretty well, so let's do it again. So it's the Sims 3 University, you're repackaging an idea the second time around. um One thing that I did not like about the Sims 3 University quite severely is that, well, first of all, you had to pay money to go there. Secondly, you had to go twice, um, at least twice, if I remember correctly, in order to finish your degree. I think it's to like emulate having a spring break, but it kind of breaks up the gameplay. Also, it doesn't really add young adult because now we have young adult. So it feels like we're using the time period of young adult to exchange to go to university twice, mind you, and pay money. So you're probably going to be working beforehand in order to go. It's between Aliens and Belagoth. I'm gonna give it Belagoth. It's middling for me. It's a thing that I still enjoy doing sometimes, but it's not as well integrated as The Sims 2 was. And that is a problem for me. The Sims 3 Island Paradise, a very unique idea. You have diving, you have houseboats, you have like a gorgeous island map. It's so buggy that don't you dare install it. Like, your whole game will start lagging so severely because now you have houseboats and everyone's pathing is messed up. You have to delete families from it just to play it properly. When the product is that broken, even though the idea in itself is so cool, we're going crumple bottom. Sorry. Now, The Sims 3 Into the Future has quite a novel idea where it's based on the series kind of Back to the Future. Um, except, well, it even has some Easter eggs from it, really. Except that in here you kind of have a portal. So, like, you go in, you can make some changes, you can go out, and you can, like, see the future as, like, this dystopia, or you can see the future as, like, this paradise. You know, depending on the actions that you do, it kind of changes what happens in the future, but it's very disconnected from the rest of the game. Like, you can ignore that portal and just like never use it. And unless you use it, you don't really experience the content. So kind of feels segmented. But also the idea is kind of cool. It's novel, so you know what? We're gonna give it its aliens because you can still get quite a bit of fun from it. It's just it's not integrated as well, and there isn't as much future things to do in the present. Like, it's almost like visiting an amusement park. You have to go there to do something. Now we're arriving at The Sims 4. I like how it looks. It looks pretty. Definitely over time gotten quite a few customization options. That's all I can say about it. It downgraded in every possible aspect. I think it downgraded further than The Sims 2. It's buggy, it's laggy, it's borderline unplayable, it's boring. Um, they advertised it on emotions and Sims being able to multitask. Now, unfortunately, Sims multitasking kills all the joy that you can have in this game, at least for me, because they will always be attempting to multitask, and it makes anything last twice as long. Or sometimes not even twice as long, but 5 times as long. How would you like to have breakfast for the next 3 hours? Because your sim is also trying to have a conversation with someone, but the animations can't really come out properly, so they will take a spoonful, they will sit and smile, then they will yap, then they will sit and smile, then they will take a spoon. That means that you have to play it efficiently, you have to cancel all multitasking. And the thing is, on the Sims that you're not controlling, the whole multitasking thing, it kind of stacks to a point where eventually your game begins to lag. Like, base game itself felt like it was not meant to be built upon. Like, they just used the wrong engine and then they tried to build upon it for the last 10 years, which makes it an absolute disaster. And some people are super for it because it's a lot more inclusive. It has like hearing aids and it has different gender variety, but it is so boring. And even the environment for the longest time was flat. It even released without pools because they used an engine that was not meant to build a life simulator upon. It was supposed to be an online game, and it shows. They had to recode it several times, and that still didn't fix it. So I'm sorry, but base game Sims is giving dummy. Like, I can't actually rate it high. I'm so sorry. Then we have the first expansion, and it is, it's like if they took ambitions, but now you have load screens and you still have to deal with the Sims trying to multitask. So the careers themselves are well defined, they're exciting. It is the kind of expansion that The Sims 4 can handle because it's very, very closed. It's the this amount of content and you plop it over here and you don't expand it in any way possible. Like it doesn't connect to any other content. It's just its own little circle and it stays here and then The Sims 4 can handle it. As far as that execution goes, Sims 4 can handle get to work. It is a well defined thing. We're now copying ideas from The Sims 3. We're copying from ambitions, which means that it is a letdown because you remember what was, and it's not what was anymore. So it's giving Bella Goth for me. It's gonna get worse. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everyone that came at The Sims 4, and I know that this might be your favorite game, but I am so looking forward to when The Sims 4 gets competition, which is probably soon enough. Even if competition's not gonna be too good, I will just appreciate the variety because it gets sad. Speaking of sad, get together. Right. That expansion had one very good function, which is it allowed you to create your own clubs and define club activities, which made it kind of like The Sims 2 open for business. It became very user content driven because you could make very stupid clubs. You could make the woohoo club, you know, you can make pretend to be the Knights club. You can make come over here and do my homework club. You can make please clean my house club. It was very personal content driven, and that features great. What is the rest of the expansion? There's a town. There's a dance skill. It's 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 just giving loose to me. And so much of the Sims 4 expansions are unfortunately like that. So it's giving crumple bottom. I kinda want to give it Bella Goth because that system was excellent, but overall it's giving crumple bottom. Next up, city living. Beautiful shells. Beautiful neighborhood. The whole advertisement point is that you get to like move to the city and live in apartments. Except that they're shells. You can ever build your own apartment, which is that is the main selling point. It's giving the Sims 2 apartment life, but like all the way over here, like all the way down. At least the Sims 3 just threw apartments haphazardly into nightlife and created late night. And that was a very shit execution of apartments, but now apartments are the main point, and it is a shit execution of apartments. Now, gorgeous shells. It can be fun to play in one of those apartments and kind of role play it. It's giving crumple bottom. There are still some nice things to say about it, but it no longer feels innovative and it no longer feels like a real expansion. It just kind of feels like you sold me a shell. Um, it's not a good feeling. It's especially visible if you're taking an idea that was already done and doing it again. It's one of like a big issue, and you're not even like innovating. Cats and dogs. Everybody loves pets, except that you can no longer control them, and the horses are gone. And pet AI isn't very good because just your your play area is now kind of limited to your house again, kind of like it was in The Sims 2. Technically, it's slightly bigger. Technically, it's a neighborhood, but everything is behind the load screen, so technically it's your house and the road. And from one side of my house to the other or to another floor, my pet was not always aware that there is a food bowl and that there is a water bowl and that there is a toilet. And I can't control them myself, so I can't really tell them to go there, which means that my pet is dying miserably unless I'm micromanaging it. On top of that, small pets were sold in a stuff pack for an expansion pack. So that happened. You couldn't really utilize it unless you had this expansion pack, so you had to buy the expansion pack, then the stuff pack. Horses are gone. Pets are no longer controllable. They added the vet career, but it's kind of like playing the doctor again. It felt like it was an excuse to not do pets properly. Like, look, we're taking quite a few things away from you, but you can be a vet. So it's giving dummy. It's just. And speaking of it's seasons for the third time. But this time it's flat. You have no idea how disappointed I was to see flat snow, flat leaves, and flat rain. It changes the 2D texture on the floor. The Sims 2 had snow that accumulated. You would have to like properly walk through. Sims 4 Seasons is worse. And it's not really doing anything innovative. So I don't know what it is doing, but it is rehashing seasons for the third time. So instead of like when The Sims 3 was rehashing pets for the third time, and it bumped it up significantly, like, yeah, pets are controllable now, yeah, horses. It's rehashing seasons for the third time, but it's worse. But they know that you're gonna buy it because seasons is kind of now a core part of the game. And you just have to buy separately. It's giving dummy for me. So that is where it's going. It's bad. It might be required for gameplay, but just them selling it separately to you when it is required for gameplay and when they're rehashing an expansion pack for the third time and it's worse. It is bad. Speaking of which, get famous. Now you just kind of have the whole fame system from late night and Sims 1, what was it called? Superstar. There we go. Packaged together with like an active acting career. And that's an expansion now. So you're kind of just re-releasing content again. And it's very, very hard to see this game as its own unique thing when you're like re-releasing content again. And what you're re-releasing is kind of just smaller than what you have put out before in a game that's more limited than what you have put out before, but somehow still really, really laggy and it runs really, really poorly. But it's worse. Not a fan. It's giving dummy. Island living. So you had a chance to redo Island Paradise, except better because now we don't have really, houseboats, so you can't mess up the routing and it can't really crash your computers, so it can be playable. It now has mermaids. It has off the grid living, which means that you can kind of live without electricity. Um, it starts pushing this like ecology angle. We're gonna see it reappear through so many expansions later. I don't mind ecology angle by itself. Um, I do mind the rehashed idea, especially in the same like generation. So it's not even like, oh, The Sims 3 did ecology this way and The Sims 4 does ecology this way. No, it's just a whole bunch of different expansions gets a tiny bit of this thing, and then one expansion super focuses on it, and then a different expansion gets a tiny bit of this thing. It gets confusing, like it gets not very defined, but it is executed as cool as it can be, except that there's that thing where for some reason Sims can just enter your property as they wish because it's like island, society and island like community living. But the issue is with the multitasking, where once again, the most inefficient way to play The Sims 4 is to allow them to multitask. One thing that they will always try to do is either drink, even though they have no drink need, they have a hidden drink need, but it can never be fulfilled, so they will always try to drink. Um, and another thing is they will always be trying to socialize with other Sims, making you highly unable to just get on with your life and get shit done. It is highly irritating when you incorporate community living into what is highly irritating. It becomes highly irritating, but it's kind of The Sims 4's fault. So it's not really what expansion pack did, it's the fact that they tried to do what expansion pack did in this game. So I'm gonna give it crumple bottom. If The Sims 4 wasn't this dead broken, island living could be very cool. But The Sims 4 is very broken. um, Discover University. We're rehashing University for the third time now, and it has the same problem as The Sims 3 University. You can't really complete it with a singular enrollment. You have to re-enroll multiple times. It has a lot of non-rabbit holes, which means like, active attending lectures and doing shit, which means that multitasking influences it. And because it's built on The Sims 4, the whole thing just falls down like a pile of straw, so it's giving me dummy. It loses points for lack of originality, and then it loses points for the fact that it's The Sims 4 that we're trying to do this on, which makes it super hard. Eco lifestyle, cool idea, very cool idea. It's about ecological living, and depending on the actions that you do, your town either like improves or it like collapses into this like really yellowish hue factory thing. You can start building quite a few things from like trash, and you can start like reusing things. It has a very annoying mechanic which is called like neighborhood voting. um One of the neighborhood voting things is caring is sharing, I believe. It allows anyone to take your stuff, but more importantly, it allows anyone to take stuff from anywhere. And if in The Sims 2 Open for Business, if I sold an item, that item actually stayed in The Sims inventory. In The Sims 4, whatever Sims do, those items just get deleted. Like, if they're not controlled by you, it's the same as them not being there. It's just an empty shell. So let's imagine that you're just trying to play game pack based on spas, which was just spas. You could go to a spa, and neighborhood votes decides that it's time for sharing is caring. Somebody, like NPCs that come in, can just steal the spa. You can't do spa in the spa anymore because spa has no more spa remaining. That seems like a great oversight. I'm gonna give it crumple bottom. It could have gone higher. Novel idea. Oversights. Snowy Escape. It's a holiday pack, except that unlike Bon Voyage, you get one place. It has snow. It's giving me dummy. Cottage living. Very novel idea. I don't actually know how to rate this one, so I think I'm gonna give it Bella Goth, and I'm gonna explain why. We have cows and chickens. We have farm living. This is the first time that in The Sims we have farm living. It's very exciting. It is something that people wanted for a very, very, very long time. Gardening is broken. It tends to reset itself quite often, making you lose your crops. Um, it's a big part of the expansion. It broke base game gardening as well, so gardening's just broken, blanket broken for everybody. You also have part of what was supposed to be here in Horse Ranch, so it kind of feels like they just cut off goats and kept it for later just so that you don't get to have it, which is a shame. This is the kind of pack that seemed ideal for The Sims 4. It is unique. It is an idea that you're executing for the first time. It doesn't make my neighbors steal from me. It doesn't invite Sims to constantly try to talk to me and allows me to get on with my shit. Farming and being a farmer in general is fairly solitary and requires quite a lot of work. But you broke the farming aspect. It it had potential for being souls. You broke the farming aspect. How do you release something where the major function is farm and you break the farming at? Let's move on. Um, high school years. Um, it allows you for the first time to play teenagers going to a high school actively. It's kind of like an active career. There is a load screen, just the same with Get to Work, which means that you can only play one family member at the same time, which does make it quite the problem. Sims 4 has another issue. It is very repetitive. When they added high school years, they prolonged the teenager lifespan even more. There's not that much to do in the high school. And if you choose to play the high school, it's the same as Get to Work. You kind of are just playing one sim at the same time. The best way to utilize this pack would be to have one sim in your household, which is somehow a teenager. Gets points for being unique, loses points for being kind of boring and very hard to utilize, so it's giving me crumple bottom. Growing Together, it is a expansion pack very similar to Generations. They're kind of rehashing the idea. It adds more shit to do for your Sims throughout different life stages. It includes like unique family relationships that allows your family members to want to like move in with you and shit. The way that I describe it, you can tell that it's not my favorite. It's not even the fact that you rehash Generations. It's not even the fact that it is hard to define this kind of expansion pack. It is definitely the fact that you have released Parenthood as the game pack before. It's the same content but done twice. I'm pretty sure that this is where they added quite a lot of things to do with infants, and like assholes, they released infants in free-to-play updates. So you have 5% of the content, and then you have to buy the next 95% of the content if you actually want to do anything with your infant. We already had toddlers, so I don't actually understand the need. for infants. It was kind of a throwaway life stage. Now it's toddler point two electric boogaloo. It does not make super sense to me. Infants very cute. I give you that. As annoying to take care of as toddlers are. I feel like it's almost the same life stage twice. I don't understand the need for it. I don't like that you had to buy majority of that content while releasing like a little bit free for the free to play players. Don't like the fact that you already had Parenthood, so this is just the second time that you have done the same thing. Yeah, it's giving me dummy. Horse Ranch. So you stole horses from the Sims 3 pets and kept them away from the Sims 4 cats and dogs, and then you stole goats from cottage living and you made that into expansion. That's Horse Ranch. It's giving me dummy. Lastly, we have For Rent. As a concept, it allows you to play a landlord. Most of what you're going to be renting is probably apartments. It actually finally allows you to mark off pieces of the same place, actually allowing you to make apartments, which was supposed to be in city living. You still can't visit them without a load screen, which is disappointing. Unfortunately, renting and landlordism, a bit of a dystopian topic right now. Majority of people can barely afford to live. Majority of people are renting and will never be able to buy their own property. Playing a game where you're kind of escaping from all of that is a lot better than playing a game that's realism times 10. I have a very similar issue with The Sims 4 of electricity prices, unless, of course, you're building windmills and solar panels. The electrical issues in Europe and very high electricity prices were here not that long ago. It made winters intolerable. A lot of places, especially in UK, nearly went broke. Our public buildings could barely function. Like schools told governments that they will have to close because they can't afford heating. Majority of regular people could not afford heating, and then The Sims 4 was like, manage your electricity. So it's that kind of throwback. It's like, do I want depressive elements in my game? Yay or nay? So on one hand, proper apartments, at least you can like section off part of the house and allow somebody else to live in it. Novel, so good. On the other hand, depressing. So this, we're gonna give it Bella Goth. And that is my ranking. And honestly, Sims, can you please stop? I'm serious. The Sims 4 DLC at the moment will cost over $1,000 to get. I'm pretty sure it's over £1,000 by this point. They have game packs, they have stuff packs, they have kits, which is just a smaller stuff pack. They have expansion packs. It's being built on a broken base, and what I saw of The Sims 5 does not scream good at me, because they're like, we want it to be compatible with phones. Yeah, Genshin Impact is pretty good, but it is not a simulation game. You're not gonna make a expansive, good, open world simulation game, which is what you had with The Sims 3, work on a phone. You're gonna have The Sims 4, but less, to work on a phone. I'm not amused. That's why I'm glad that we're gonna be having competition. I don't know how I'm gonna feel about the competition yet. But having is better than not having. I don't know if it's my own bias. Maybe it is. Maybe it's the fact that I'm no longer as involved in the whole franchise. Honestly, I couldn't afford it halfway through, and it was so broken that it didn't make sense to spend money on it anymore. I have tried it, but not for money. But you can clearly see how it trends downwards for me. Like Sims 1, innovative, peak. Sims 2 builds on it, peak. The Sims 3 starts falling into the middling tier quite heavily, mostly because of reusing ideas or reselling you content that you have already had, or combining ideas, a whole bunch of ideas into one that doesn't like cohesively stay there and is not better than what came previous in any way. But innovative, new. It had something to offer to you, right? It had substance. It had open world. It had very high variety of customization. I take putting faces for that. That is the only reason why I still try and reinstall my The Sims 3 from time to time. Because it had those parts that made it invaluable. And sure, a lot of its expansions for me fell to the middling point. Because if I'm comparing to what came before, it's no longer unique, bold, new. But the Ambitions was very new. It's still there in the Soul tier. World Adventures tried a bold new idea. Pets improved significantly despite being the third time that they're rehashing this. Into the Future tried a bold new idea and executed it, unlike Island Paradise that crashed the game. But look at The Sims 4. If The Sims 3 can still hit S tier for me, The Sims 4 is now hitting middling at best. Majority of what is doing it is, if we're gonna take the three things that are middling there, get to work with rehashed ambitions, but in a more limited capacity. Cottage living broke its main point, which was farming, otherwise hello S tier. And For Rent is rehashing the same idea at least a second time inside the same like game time, because you kind of already sold me apartments with city living, if you remember that, and it is depressing. I don't want to be depressed, but at the same time, it's new. It is, you're trying something new, and that's great, but honestly, can you just make Sims 5 like good and do something new with it? Maybe incorporate seasons into the base game instead of trying to sell it for the third time, or incorporate pets into the base game instead of trying to sell it for the fourth time. But this is EA. It doesn't they don't want to be good, they want to be money, and that is so disappointing. Maybe it's not so if you haven't been here. Maybe it's not so if you grew up with like The Sims 4. It is so if you can still remember The Sims 1. It is so if when I can remember my 6-year-old self playing The Sims 1 on my friend's computer and then finally getting it at some point and playing it on my computer. The Sims 2 was such a big deal to me when it came out, even though it wouldn't run and I had to replace a whole computer in order for it to run. And I had to wait several months. So I got the game couldn't work. I had to wait. All I could do was to read about the game from like the guide, and I also had to go to a English summer camp that year, and I knew that my mother got me a computer that can run The Sims 2, and that it's waiting for me at home, but I have to do the summer camp first. So that was pretty awful. And just so you know, I still could only run like medium to small lots. If I tried to like have 8 Sims and a very big sized lot, it ran at about 15 FPS. But the child heart in me was very, very happy. I did quite a lot of modding of my game myself. Thankfully, the Sims2.com is no longer existing because otherwise you could see my account. I have done a lot of anime eye colors, except badly. So just imagine a kid taking a paintbrush and coloring everything that's not like the inside of its eye in like one color. Obviously, it's gonna be very, very flat. Obviously, it's not gonna make a good texture. I was very proud of myself with that. Um, The Sims 3, for the longest time, I could not play it because ever since late night, it actually completely broke and did not run on my computer at all. I was on a laptop at that point, despite meeting the requirements. Um, EA support told me that they're not gonna do anything because I am on a laptop, so laptops don't count as computers. That made tiny me very, very, very sad. I wasn't even that tiny anymore. I was a teenage me, but I was very, very, very sad. Um, Especially considering that because of the game update, I couldn't just play The Sims 3 and The Sims 3 World Adventures anymore. The whole thing flat out stopped working. But when I went out to live on my own as an adult, I got to have a proper computer and catch up, and it still ran as hot doggy turd, which is not the same for The Sims 1 and The Sims 2. I can probably still get The Sims 2 to run here and The Sims 1 to run here. I've seen some YouTubers really struggle with it, but I remember running The Sims 2 on like newer operating things without weird glitches of shadows, and The Sims 1 is possible with emulation, harder, but still possible. Um, a Sims 3, you're gonna install a lot of mods to make it playable. It will still have lag. Things like Island Paradise is just a no-no. So when The Sims 4 came out, I was like, okay, we can live with limitations. If you're gonna give me a clean gaming experience, like The Sims 2 or The Sims 1. So I was quite excited for it, and a clean gaming experience it was not. It's still a broken doggy turd, but now it's downgraded. So you can see a trend downwards. I don't know, guys. What are your opinions? I know that I have mumbled on and ranted on about this for a very long time. I hope that you have enjoyed the video. This is once again, obviously, a lot lower production quality. For one thing, my stupid lamp can't even like proper stay on, so I'm not like properly lit the whole time, and it just feels like I'm living in a horror house. It keeps on like switching on and off. But I did it. I ranked all of the Sims expansion packs and base games that have ever existed. So, what do you think about my rating? Do you agree with it? Do you hate it? What would you change? Share it in the comments down below, and I hope I'm gonna see you in my more regular gameplay videos. Toodaloo!